Oh my god, why did I not take notes? I looked up the pronunciation of the author name and the character names, and since my memory for this lasts about 2 seconds, strap in for how many ways can you mispronounce the same name over and over. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat, and today I would like to talk about Iron Widow by Xiran Jay Zhao. In the story, Zetian sets out to enlist after her sister has been killed in her service to the army, not on duty but in service to the army. And Zetian thinks that the pilot she was assigned to is the reason her sister is dead, so now she enlists to get revenge. Soon after she joins the army, she gets assigned to Xiran, the strongest pilot they currently have. Xiran steers the biggest mecha they have in their effort against the Hundans, insect-like beings out of spirit metal that keep coming for the borders of this country. All mechas need to be piloted by one guy and one girl. And usually the girls that go in with Xiran don't survive this experience because mecha use drains people of their life energy and is more likely to kill the woman of the team rather than the guy. Okay, positive things first. It was relatively hard to put this book down because the pace is quite fast and there's a lot of stuff happening. And I don't think you have a chance to ever really feel bored with it. The world building is quite interesting. It has a couple of gaps and a couple of issues, but generally speaking, it's an interesting world this story takes place in. The characters could be interesting, but unfortunately feel more like anime tropes. Like we have the broody, silent guy who seems like a bad guy but is really nice on the inside. We have the guy who seems like a cinnamon roll on the outside but has a dark secret. And we have the really, really angry female who can do anything she puts her mind to, really. Expect spoilers from here on out because I have quite a few things to say about this book and I can't really do it without giving things away. I was quite happy to see the polyamorous relationship in this. It took quite some time for the two guys in this triangle to get together, but I've also heard people say that there was not enough development between those two to justify this relationship at all, and to a degree I can see why. I think it's highly unlikely that this society is not homophobic because it is so steeped in toxic masculinity and a over-the-top patriarchy that it is highly unlikely that this society is accepting of queer people. So I see why it would take those two possibly longer to get together than either of the guys with the girl. But then again, we also see the whole story from Zetian's perspective, and she doesn't spend every waking moment with those guys. And there were hints in between of like, oh, he might actually be attracted to guys as well. And oh, the way they are holding hands because E.G. helps Xiran through a rough period as well. So there are some hints for it, but you don't get to see the whole development of this relationship. So I see why people think it might be missing. For me, I was still okay with that. I was just happy to see a polyamorous relationship with like equal partners throughout. Okay, onto the more worrisome bits, and this will be all over the place, but there are quite a few things to say about it. For one, Zetian's motivation is rather unclear throughout. She starts out with "I want revenge," but then the guy she's after dies roughly half an hour into knowing her, and then she just goes on to, I guess there's a hint of, oh, I want to improve things for women then. I want to make a point that I'm not some disposable thing you can just stick in these mechas and then discard any way you like, which is fair enough. That was a good thing to work towards, I suppose. But then towards the end, she goes from, yeah, I want a place in this society or want to be treated better to, I want to rule and I'm gonna kill a bunch of people over it. And it's just like, why? Where did this come from? This starts out with her motivation from the very beginning. She wants revenge for her sister that she was very attached to. We don't ever see the sister while she's still alive, so we don't really see their relationship at all beyond one or two visions that Zetian has while she's in one of the Chrysalises. And even then, it doesn't feel like they have that much of a connection to justify Zetian going out and technically throwing her life away for revenge. Related to this is also Zetian doesn't have a positive relationship with any other female in the whole book, and there aren't too many, to be honest. Like, her mom and grandma are fairly sidelined, and that's the bit you do see is not a particularly good relationship. And then there are two other female pilots. One of them seems to be fairly friendly towards her, the other very much isn't. But then those relationships don't really get explored all that much, and she never becomes friends with either of them either. Zetian is also a very angry, full-on feminist. In and by itself, that's not a problem, except you have no idea where it's coming from. Apparently her whole family very much sticks to what society wants from them. Both her mom and grandma are very much like, yes, you need to fulfill the ideal role of a female. You need to be subservient and, you need to serve men in general. And Zetian is very much not having that, but where's it coming from? Where did she pick up all of those notions that she would want to be equal when nobody in her life ever shows her that this should be an option? In general, she knows so much more than you would expect from this character. Like, she knows exactly what's going on in the world, even though her access to news and technology is very limited. Like, she meets E.G. out in the woods once a month and gets to use his, iPad or whatever it is, his tablet, essentially. But he's also the one teaching her to read, because she seems to have trouble with that. I guess education is not for women in this society, what a surprise. But if he still has to teach her how to read, then she can't be all that quick with picking up new information if she has to dig through, like, articles or whatnot. So where is she getting all of the information she has at points to lead a military strike against something? And then in a society where everybody gets taught that women are second-class human beings and men are so much more important, she dates the two guys that are totally on board with her feminist values, again, out of nowhere. For Li Shimin, I can still kind of get it. He's the underdog. He gets mistreated by society quite a bit as well. So for him to sympathize more easily, I get it. But then E.G., he is rich. Society has never shown him anything but, yeah, you deserve everything you have. You're entitled to everything. And also from his family, which is essentially mafia, but owns like a media company or something. That doesn't really lend itself to going against this grain either. And this goes to quite some extremes. Like, he only ever tells Zetian that she needs to be careful of his dad. They interact with his dad at some point because they need his help, and there's really no way around it or no other way to make these things happen. But he repeatedly tells Zetian to be careful of his dad. You can't trust him. Okay, fair enough. So he mistrusts his dad. And I can imagine that he's carrying around quite a grudge, because his dad also murdered his mom when she didn't smile enough for his liking during some meeting or whatever. So definitely a proper psychopath as a dad there. So if he held a grudge and was just waiting or biding his time until he has an opportunity to get revenge because he had a very close relationship with his mom or something, I would get that. But we get no hint of that whatsoever. Just that he's cautious of his dad. But towards the end, when Izzy's dad tries to blackmail Zetian into something, E.G. gets up and murders his dad, and it's just like, yeah, whatever it is, whatever he was just saying to you, I'm on your side, I don't care. I'm like, okay, that's wild. Let's just put it like that. It's wild, and it came out of nowhere. Another big issue is at some point Zetian and Ximin set out to capture a general and torture him for information. Not only is torture portrayed as being effective, as in you actually get what you want, and not, well, the person will say anything just so you stop, which is what you actually get. But it also has zero effect on Ximin and Zetian. They just roll on with their lives and keep trucking, and it seems to have no negative repercussions on them whatsoever. I get that Ximin was really mad at this guy and wanted revenge, but there is still a world between being justifiably angry at somebody and wanting revenge and tying them to a table and torturing them to death. There's a massive gap between those two things, even if you wanted to kill somebody out of revenge. Then towards the end, Zetian finds the Yellow Dragon, an Emperor-class Chrysalis that has been missing for quite some time because I forgot his name. But the pilot is actually the Emperor, or used to be the Emperor 200 years ago, before he had to freeze himself because he contracted the flower pox and there was no cure back in his day. But Zetian finds him and has the antidote for the stuff, so she wakes him up and tells him, you need to listen to me because you've been asleep for 200 years, you have no idea what's going on, but I need you to sit in the other seat that was only designed for women, really, and let me steer this thing because we have things to do. And he just goes along with it. Just like, okay, the guy who was used to being the emperor and having his way all the time just goes, yep, okay, you woke me up, I'll do whatever you say. And then she just goes out, murders pilots in her own army. Again, you can see why she would want to attack these two. But as for the emperor, I would have still expected him to go, why are we attacking our own army? I need to interfere here at some point. But he just goes along with it the whole way, like, Zetian marches back to the capital city, storms through it, possibly kills however many people in the process, smashes up the palace where the actual government is sitting, kills her own family, and there is no reaction from him. He's just like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, interesting. It seemed a bit strange, to say the least. Now, Zetian was always supposed to be like a villain protagonist, not a hero. But even for a villain, I have a hard time sympathizing with her because she murders people left and right. And when it's self-defense, okay, that's one thing. But she seems to have zero compassion for anything or anybody. And it doesn't even feel like she's actually doing any of these things to improve the world in general for women or other girls. It all seems very egotistical and bloodthirsty. You will sometimes encounter language that you wouldn't quite expect and something that's reminiscent of ancient China, except with mechas. But when you get to the resolution, it makes a lot more sense because it's not actually playing in the past on a completely different world, it's essentially the future. There were hints for this beforehand though, like towards the beginning. She tells you that if you give the gods enough offerings, then they might drop you a manual or something. And I was here like, they drop you an actual manual? Like, do you get the print edition or do they just send you data? Or, but there's an actual interaction with gods. So, okay, that sounds suspicious. Yeah, but towards the end you find out why that is. Then the last thing that I would assume will get explored more in the next book is the actual nature of the Hundans, because you get a bit of a hint that things are not as they seem, and some of these insectoids actually try to communicate with people at points, but that just goes unanswered, which was quite a pity, I think. But maybe we'll get to see some of that in the second book. So while I went through this book rather quickly and It has enjoyable parts. I think it has quite a few issues. It wants to send a feminist message, but without any nuance. So all in all, between the issues with the character, her motivation, her relationship with other females, and a magic system that is not quite clear to me, but it also didn't take away from the story, at least not really. But she has to explain it every single time it comes up, I think, and that probably means that you didn't explain it well enough in the first place. But anyway, despite all of that, it was a fast read, and it was by far not the worst book I've ever read. So because of the many issues, I think I'll have to go with this cat though. But ultimately, if you're curious, pick it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to help the channel out, and let me know in the comments whether you read the book and what you think of it. I'll be back next week with another video, so bye guys!